what we're doing. This is page 8 in mine.
Okay.
This will review a little bit of what we did last week and hopefully clarify some of this anger and hatred. Alright, so they're going up on a mountain. Number 1, what's wrong with being on top of a mountain? Less oxygen. So for number 1, there's less oxygen. Okay. So then number 2, how does that affect your amount of oxygen that you get from the air? There's less oxygen in the air, and breathing requires diffusion. What happens to the amount of oxygen getting into your body? Less, because there's less difference. So the pressure changes, and you get less oxygen into your blood.
Page 8.
Okay. That's the good old diffusion concept, right? So one of the problems is you have less oxygen getting in. To prove I'm not making that up, let's review that picture from last week. What was this picture here? This? So if I go on top of the mountain peak, the PO2, the amount of oxygen in my air sacs, is going down, which means it's getting harder and harder to diffuse into my blood because there's less of a difference, less gradient. Make sense? I'm going to have less oxygen floating into my blood from the air sacs. Make sense?
Is the 40-45 like the standard number?
Yes, I think it's normal.
Do we need to know these numbers or just sort of
Keep them in your head. I'm not going to ask you for everything. So now we're on to the rest of question 2. We figured out you have less oxygen, and therefore getting less oxygen from the air. Now, can someone tell me what your breathing rate does if I put you on top of Mount Hood? You hyperventilate. So you would hyperventilate. Hyperventilate. Breathe more often. Why? Why would you breathe more often?
Because you can't get as much.
No, last week I told you, why do you breathe?
To get rid of acid.
Right. So you're with CO2. That's under normal conditions. Under normal conditions in this room right here, you breathe to get rid of acid. However, on top of a big tall mountain is not a normal condition. So the body has a backup plan just for that emergency. Let me show you this picture again from last week. Here. Remember this picture? Okay, we talked about CO2 and H and all that. I intentionally left off this little symbol here. You wouldn't freak out. But there are oxygen sensors also in your body. If you notice, they're only in your neck. Most of the body checks the carbon dioxide levels. The normal way you measure breathing is the acid levels. But there's a backup system in your neck that deals with oxygen levels. How do you say low oxygen in medical talk? Hypoxic. So what you're going to do is what they call the hypoxic drive. So your body's going to kick in a low oxygen drive. What this means in English, if the oxygen gets very, very low, abnormally low, way down low, like 30% or something, the body would start to check that you need to do something to stay alive. And so if that happens, it will increase your breathing rate to try to get more oxygen in. That's only a backup system if the CO2 is not catching up. So on a test, if I don't mention you're on top of a hill, you don't worry about hypoxic drive. It's only if you live on high altitude. In this room, you're doing CO2. But if you go to Mount Hood, you're going to do hypoxic drive at some level of altitude.
So you don't end up doing that, like you were saying that swimmers exhale a bunch.
Right, that's not affecting that.
It's not the same.
They're doing CO2. You have to go up way high with really low, like half the normal oxygen. Yes?
So altitude's the only thing that would turn that drug.
Under normal conditions, yes. The other way you can do is COPD can do that as well. However, there's current research that says it actually doesn't work in COPD patients. So it's yes.
Why do runners go to train at high altitude?
That's the EPO thing. That's their blood volume. That's not this.
Not that.
Although this would kick in eventually, but this is not why they go into Colorado.
Okay.
So this is simply if you go to Denver for a weekend, you will notice your hyperventilating will increase because the brain's catching on that you're running out of air. It's only if you go to high altitude.
Is that regulated by the ponds?
Yes, the ponds kind of picks that up because these ones would be normal in the person altitude. The oxygen keeps dropping, the ponds realizes you're not here anymore. So it realizes your altitude.
The rate of respiration.
Right. So, for a test in this class, unless I tell you you're on a mountain peak, you don't worry about hypoxic drive. But in this situation, you do, because this person is way up high, 17,000 feet up. So their brain begins to notice they're running out of air, and they begins to crank down their hyperventilation. Make sense? This is kind of an oddball backup plan. This also is why you get altitude sickness, is you're running this problem. So let's do number 3 then. If I'm breathing more, what should happen to my blood gases if I ventilate more? I mean, what should happen? My blood gases should do what? They should exchange more. So give me, oxygen would do what? Up or down? Oxygen would try to go up. I'm breathing more often. In theory, I try to get more oxygen in. And CO2 should do what if I exhale more often?
Decrease.
All right. So the problem is when I breathe more, I'm getting more oxygen in. I'm getting more CO2 out, right? Let's go down to number 4. What happens to the unloading of hemoglobin if I'm less CO2? Let's look at this equation. If I have less CO2, I'm going to make less acid, right? And that quiz question you just took, right? You hated me for? Remember that graph? Remember that graph? If I have less acid in my body, the curve goes which direction? Up. Goes upwards to the left, which means around less. So when I'm breathing out all my acid, it's going to shift my curve that way. Less CO2 in my blood. So I have a left shift. Or an upshift. So I unload less oxygen.
Oh, okay.
Up or left? Yes. They're saying. So you can either visualize the blue lines above, lines to the left. They're the same word. Yeah. Does that make sense, the logic here? So I've exhaled my acid out. My blood thinks you don't need any more oxygen, so it shifts to the left and delivers less oxygen for every body part. Is that a problem at high altitude? Yeah, so the problem is you're doing the exact reverse. You're getting less oxygen to your body because you're blowing your acid away. Okay.
Which was the same example you gave when you were diving?
Yes, more or less, but that's intentional.
Can you try another acid?
I'm not,
Right.
I'm like 100% lost.
Yeah, so,
I'm 100% lost as well.
Is this the board?
yes. So, I hyperventilate more. My acid went away, right? Acid goes away, I unload less oxygen to my body. Everyone follow the steps?
Yes.
Okay. Problem is, I'm at altitude where I have less oxygen anyway, right? So now I have even less oxygen getting to my body because I don't unload it from my blood.
So do you still continue?
Yes, you would. You hyperventilate more and more and more because the brain thinks you're out of gases, which then drives you further and further away from the curve.
Now what's the point of the hypoxic?
The brain doesn't know you're at a high altitude. It thinks you're just stupid down here.
Okay.
Right? The brain doesn't want you to be at 17,000 feet. The brain doesn't realize that by doing that, you're going to have this problem occur because no normal human being would be on top of Mount Denali.
Naturally, you start with less.
It's like
less oxygen
Yes.
delivered. So.
Now I'm getting twice, I'm getting a double problem. Right.
That's why there's like.
Right, so hikers use the bag, or you're supposed to go up and acclimate for a couple days, right? That's the logic of mountain climbing. But let's go back to our case study. So if we follow the logic here, right? I breathe faster, which blew all my acid out of my body, then shifts my curve to the left, which makes it unload less to my body. So if you follow those steps, you understand the interpretation of the curve. So the breathing rate changes my acidity, the acidity changes how much I can unload to my body. Make sense? Okay, let's go one more question then. After a few days, On question 5, you'll make this chemical called 2,3-DPG, which you never have to know in this class. I'm never going to ask you 2,3-DPG. Let's look at what 2,3-DPG chemical does for you. It does something. Here's a graph showing 2,3-DPG. So the purple line is normal levels. When you're at altitude, you make more DPG. What does my curve do if I add more DPG? It goes down to the right. What does a rightward or downward curve do for my unloading? I'm going to unload more. So by making this chemical, your body tries to shove you that way on the curve. Unload more or get back to normal. So I ended up unloading less because I breathed too fast. My body tries to fix it by making this chemical shove you to the right to unload more again. That makes sense? So that's all about this curve going left and right. So 2,3-DPG shifts your curves to the right. Unload more to your tissues. Sense? So what you want to do when you're studying for this, leftward means unload less, rightward unloads more. So DPG shifts me to the right. So unload more. Which is good. Yes. That's always more action.
It's good if you're compensating.
That's compensating. Right. Does that make sense? Chemicals that shift your curve to the right would unload more. Chemicals shift you to the left and unload less. Follow that so far?
Wait, so what exactly is it compensating? Like, I'm still.
Compensating for the unloading. So without DPG, I'm over here from being on top of the hill. I'm unloading less. DPG is trying to get me to unload more by shoving my RDPs on the curve here. So they're further down to unload a greater percentage. They're trying to make me unload more to my body. Compensate for this. So what other things besides DPG would make your curve go to the right? Reviewing from last week. I could heat myself up. Temperature shifts me right. What else makes me shift right? Acid. I can become more acidic. That would shift me rightwards. Right? Heat. Right? So your body can also do it chemically and shift you to the right. Unload more. So heat makes me unload more. Acid, DPG. Make sense? Lots of silence out there. Lots of anger. I can feel it.
Is this one of the hardest things?
Yes.
For all 3 terms?
Yes. I understand. Anytime you do graphs in chemistry, everyone gets mad. Let's review one more time.
I'm not going to ask you.
I'm not going to ask you a DPG question directly. The concept of DPG.
You need to cover it.
I'm not going to ask you DPG directly. I'm never going to ask you what is DPG. I told you DPG shifts you to the right. That'd be the kind of question to ask. So let's review one more time. So things that shift me rightwards are higher temperature, being unload more. If I go on top of Mount Denali, I'm getting cold. I'm shifting left. That unload less oxygen. I can do it chemically by the breathing guide. So if I do this one here, if I'm ventilating too much, I blow off my acid, my curve goes to blue, so I unload less. DPG's job is to shift me back to the purple or the red, so I unload more. So more acid, more CO2, lower pH shifts me to the right. Yes.
So if you're at high altitude, you
Yes.
have to like when you pass out.
Yes.
When you wake back up, does your body basically stabilize? Or do you go right back to hyperventilating because you're still at that level?
The trick would be once the brain sort of wakes up, it immediately goes back to normal, which is the carbon dioxide. In about a minute and a half, you realize this isn't going to work. It shifts back to hypoxic drive.
So it'd just be a rotating
Yeah.
cycle until you actually do that.
Right, because the brain, the normal state of the brain is acid drives breathing, but then the CO2 levels would be normal, but then the oxygen sensors, those guys would scream, by the way, we're still low. The brain would then shift back to hypoxic drive and ramp up your breathing again. You pass out, it goes back to zero, then you wake up and burn. So one day you just keep passing out.
How does, so we're told not to give oxygen to COPD patients because it could cancel out their hypoxia
Alright.
and they pass out or die or whatever.
Yes.
How does that affect altitude? Give them oxygen or will it be the same kind of, potentially, same kind of thing where
Like a
people stop
COPD patient
breathing.
in altitude?
What's that?
Like a COPD patient in altitude?
Yeah.
I think a good experience. Just drag them up there and see what happens.
Why are you asking this question in a sister phone?
Has anyone done that? I don't think anyone ever can do it. Well, if you're in hypoxic driving, their brain would see the altitude has a decreased oxygen level and it's ramp up their breathing.
So
It should work. Yeah, so that's what the oxygen takes to the COPD patient is to reduce hypoxic drive. You can just try it. Yeah, go to the nursing home, grab some leads, and you're on trip. We're going. We're going. Not good. Okay, it's done.
You know, Granny probably enjoyed getting out for a while.
So if you understood the way the curves move left and right on these factors, that's the important part. Not to get all bogged down in how high you're going to go into belly, right? But we're going to finish up the case study looking at some data. Okay? Here's some data from Mark. So Mark is our guy who's having a problem. So we're going to go line by line through Mark's data and try to figure out where the real problem is. So, can someone tell me where arterial oxygen is? Where is that and what is it? That's your blood gas, right? That's your blood oxygen. His is 52. Normal is about 100. What say ye? That's pretty low. It's about half, right? So if you think about it, he has half the oxygen in his blood than you would expect. That's a bad sign. Right? Okay, CO2. He has 30. Normal's about 40 something. It is low because he breathed it all away, right? He's been hyperventilating. He blew off his acid. It all went away. Those acid levels are low because he ventilated them. Right? Alveolar oxygen. Where is that? That's in the lung. That's the air sac. 110. That's actually good, right? All right. Tidal volume we measured in lab, but that's actually considered normal. 0.4 is okay. So of these numbers, which one is the most screaming bad number on here? Arterial oxygen. He has half the oxygen in his blood than you are expecting, or it's about 100 and some odd. Okay? So now here's the question. What does that tell you between arterial oxygen being low and alveolar oxygen being normal to high? Where specific on his body is the problem at if alveolar are full of air and his blood isn't?
The respiratory membrane.
Yay! Respiratory membrane. Remind me in the class what respiratory membranes are for. Diffusion between the where and the where?
The blood in the air.
The blood in the air. So if my blood doesn't have any oxygen, but my air sacs are full of it, there must be a problem diffusing from my air sac into my blood. My respiratory membrane must not be allowing diffusion to occur. Does that make sense? That's what that's supposed to mean. If a normal person, those should be the same numbers between oxygen and the alveoli. To prove that, let's show this picture.
There's a problem keeps breathing out all the CO2.
Not directly. Let me show you this picture first. I'll answer that question. So under normal conditions, right, your air sacs and your blood should be the same number because it should be diffusion between air sac and blood. They should become the same value, about 100. So what's happening in Mark is his air sacs are 100, his blood's 50. There's a problem getting the air to get from air sac into the blood, respiratory membrane. Normally what happens, this is just human trivia, if you go up in altitudes, fluid leaks out of your blood into your lungs. And so what happens to the thickness of your air sacs if you're filling with fluid? They're getting full of fluid. Well, fluid is in a diffusion membrane, right? So it's hard to get gases to get through the fluid to get into your air, into the blood. Pulmonary edema. Let's go back to Mark. That's not the point of this exercise. So we found out the most serious lab problem for Mark is the low arterial oxygen, 52 number. Is that life-threatening to have half the oxygen in your bloodstream? I think so. Okay. I'll just cut out one of your lungs one day and let's just go live your life. It's going to be a bad day, right? So he has half the oxygen he should have. So let's do his blood pH. 7.23 from 112. You have to remember that lower numbers are acidic, higher numbers are basic. A human body normally is 7.4. So this number would be what?
Basic.
Acidic for a person, because it's lower than 7.4. What blood gas makes you acidic again? CO2. We'll talk more about that later on. Just a reminder that CO2 is the acid part. That would apply. Makes sense? Okay, so this was about those curves. So get a handle on those. If they bother you, can't help you much, just practice shifting them left and right. What we're going to do for the rest of the class is not respiratory system. It's this thing. Find your pocket of pain, the sideways page 11. Guess what I'm going to say after you get to the chart? Thou shalt do, thou shalt. You are required to memorize this chart. Page 11. Thou shalt know, thou shalt. We thought the endocrine hell was out. Oh, this is the small thing. This is nice. So easy. I didn't do anything in my sleep. Okay. To help you out with this chart, we're going to figure out what the columns are referring to. So in case you don't know, these are the organs of digestion, the organs of food, right? So swallow, burger, mouth, esophagus. There's only 5, right? Mouth is here, anus is there. That's it. We have to figure out what each one does. So physical digestion. Can someone tell me in English what that means, to physically digest?
Break
Break it down how?
Chewing.
Chewing, ripping, tearing, stomping, grinding. You're physically tearing into smaller pieces. So all you're going to put is a yes or no. So let's do that together. Does your mouth physically digest?
Yes.
Last time I checked, that's why you have teeth. Right? So all you got to do is put a yes there. Your mouth chews, grinds, right? Good. So what does it mean now to chemically digest?
Enzymes?
Enzymes, as you did in lab this morning, right? I'm melting the food. I'm enzymatically hydrolyzing the food. Fancy 112 word. So does your mouth chemically digest food?
Yes.
Yes, that's called spit, right? So my mouth will chew the food and it'll basically dissolve the food, right? Or hydrolyze the food. Now, nutrient absorption. What does that mean in English?
Goes everywhere else.
Like metabolism?
Into your bloodstream.
Amen. Nutrients. So I'm taking the good stuff out of my meal and putting it into my bloodstream. That way it can go everywhere. Does your mouth absorb nutrients?
No.
No, it does not. Mr. Christie, what about nitro pills? You don't eat nitro. Medicine, that's different. I'm talking about a burger or French fries or something.
Isn't it a very small amount of sugar absorption?
Very small. That's only really understand. We're just not, yeah. So think of the whole meal. That's not good there. Okay. Right. So, your mouth will do a yes, yes, no. It grinds up my food, it spits my food, it does not absorb my food. That's just yes, no. And you have to pick a pH of the organ. So, I don't need a number here.
6.5.
You can give me 6.5, or you can just give me a range. Your mouth is 7.5 to 6.5, would you put it where? Technology 112. Let's see. 7 is here. Let's see. These numbers are acid, and the mouth is here. So that would make it slightly acidic. It's neutral to slightly acidic. Okay? So I'm just going to pick a number. I'm going to say it's roughly 6.5.
So you do want a number there, or you?
I don't have to put a number there. I just hope.
You could say acidic.
You can say slightly acidic.
Okay.
Right? It's fine. I don't care if you know the number. So now, you're going to look in your book. That book has it, so you should put. There are a bunch of enzymes in your mouth. What do you think they're going to end with? ACE. Okay? And from lab, we know that enzymes are made somewhere. They break down something to create something. So you have to find the source of the enzymes you list. Each one's substrate and product for each enzyme you list. Right? And you're going to pick and do that whole rhythm all the way down the chart. Right? I'm going to give you roughly 20 minutes to fill that in, and we'll go over it together. Divide and conquer works well. Find a friend, find a book.